We're back. Chapter 18, a new kind of work. So, like a lot of you probably have guessed from the other videos so far, we're talking about a lot of entrepreneurship concepts, which have to do with being an artist and being a creative. And Grace here wrote this chapter in our book. I'm gonna let her take the lead on it. But there is a difference between being an entrepreneur, having that mindset as a creative, and then having this hourly work mentality. And we have to really be articulate and in our minds know the difference between what it takes for each of those and know what we're pursuing. So, Grace, what do you have to say about this? I know you have a lot to say, so.
Yeah, well, based off of some of my own struggles and honestly some things that I'm still dealing with, I don't want to say I have completely overcome this. It's a process.
Yeah.
It's a lifelong learning process, I think, for anybody. But the idea of, being an independent creative requires you to be a business owner to one degree or another.
Yeah.
Whether you're actually running your own business, like Gabby here running helps too,
yeah.
Or you're simply a freelancer or a contract worker, because a lot of independent creatives, do freelance work or have short or long-term contracts with other companies. But all of that is actually still falls under the category of kind of working for yourself and having business owner mentality.
Right.
Which is very different from being an employee. There's nothing wrong with being an employee.
No, if you want to be an employee, like some people don't want to do the entrepreneurship thing.
Yeah.
I respect that.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with being an employee. We're not putting it down. It's just
Right.
two different ways of thinking. And just because you've been a good employee in the past doesn't necessarily mean you're automatically going to be good at being a business owner. You have to learn some new things, rather.
Yeah.
That's what I should say. You will be good at it, but you have to learn a new set of skills.
Yeah, and this is a concept I think a lot of artists don't get, right? People just come into it for the art. I know I did. I wanted to be a musician, and I really loved music, and then
I just wanted to write books, and then I realized there's more to it than just writing a good book.
Yeah, if you want to sustain it as an actual art form, if you want to sustain itself, then you have to become somewhat of a business owner. So, yeah.
Yeah, and not everyone necessarily wants to be an entrepreneur or a business owner. I didn't. I just wanted to write books.
Yeah.
But I also wanted to sell books and make money with books and have lots of readers. So. And when you get to that level, if you want somebody besides your mom to appreciate your work, you got to have a little bit.
True.
Yeah.
A little bit more.
You got to have a little bit of the business owner mentality.
Yeah.
And it really is. It really is different. One of the things is the hours for dollars versus like work pay kind of idea. And maybe you've worked a job where you get a salary or something, but it really is kind of the same thing. Whether you're working salary or hourly work, depending on how your paycheck comes in. And the point is you do X, Y, Z and you get paid X dollars for it. And that does not actually always correlate when you're a business owner, and especially when you're a creative. Especially if you're creative, you're producing a music album, you're like me writing a book. I actually don't get paid until somebody buys one of my books.
Right.
But I put in hours and hours and hours of unpaid work to produce that book, which is being sold for $4.
Yeah, in which you might not get a return on your investment right away,
and I'm
or
not
ever.
And
honestly,
ideally, I'll get a return on my investment. But I didn't even really track. What is each hour of writing worth?
Right.
Some people track that. I haven't so far with my work, but at any rate, I'm not getting paid hours for dollars for the work that I've done.
Right. Yeah.
And that's okay, but it's a very different way of thinking. So when you're an employee and you show up for work at 9 o'clock in the morning, or you're on the graveyard shift and you show up at 11 p.m. or whatever your job might be, when you show up for work and you expect to get paid for the number of hours you work that day, it doesn't work that way when you're a freelance or a business owner artist, and that's okay, but you need to be okay with the idea that I just put in 25 hours and got $0.
Yeah, and I think we are talking about this because I personally want to give you and every other creative out there permission to not just have to focus on this one thing and make it work right away. I think there is this factor of, and we'll talk more about this later, but sometimes, it's going to pay you $4 the first month after you've written this book that probably took you $3,000 worth of your time, or more than that for some people, But the reality is, I want to give you permission to make quality work so that when it is still selling, and I love the fact that you can make something scalable. You can make a book one time, make an album one time, put it on the market, and it can be sold for 10 years. And you never really have to go back and change it. So you can make income. So I want to give you permission to do two things. Number one, put quality into your work, because it's going to be out there I mean, for almost ever, unless you pull it back out, which I've done that very rarely. Most of us do that rarely, but it's going to be out there for a long time. And number 2, I want to give you permission to make the work and not stop there. That's why we're helps too. That's why we're teaching people how to reach people. We were talking about this yesterday over dinner. You know, like you've put out books, I've put out albums, and we often do that as artists, creatives. We put out our project and we're like, there it goes, have at it, world. And the world's like, you did what? Like, we don't even know who you are, you know? So I want to give you permission to reach people with it. Like, feel free to market it. Put aside some cash. Maybe do some Facebook ads or something. And we have videos on our website and on YouTube that'll show you how to do that. Some on YouTube are for free. So if you don't know how to do that stuff, we have a wealth of knowledge for you. Go to our YouTube channel, check it out. I've done tutorials personally, so you can figure that out. And then, you know, go to a conference. Let people know that you've done this stuff. There's a lot of great ideas out there where you can figure out how to get your stuff out there so people will actually buy it. You know what I mean? And so as an artist, I've had to learn that the hard way. I think I put out maybe like 3 albums and no one knew about it really. A few people, and I made like $40 a month for a while. And that's actually kind of good for some people, you know? But eventually I was like, if I want to do this long term and I don't want to keep losing money, and you know, losing money after 10 years of doing something is, you're just like, all right, we got to fix something here. This business model is broken. So how can I do that? And I'm like, wow, I really have to put myself out there in new ways. And so honestly, I took a step back, I paused my art for a while, and then went out to go see how other people might be putting themselves out there. Do I have to do it the same way? No. Do you have to do it the same way? No. But I want to give you permission to find your way and not give up after you put something out. A new kind of work.
Yeah, a new kind of work. It's really about breaking the rules. You know, if you have a job of any kind, it's really more about following the rules. And following the rules is not a bad thing, by the way.
That's someone else's made, because now I run a company.
Yeah.
I make the rules. You
yeah.
know, people follow.
So yeah, and following the rules is not a bad thing, and especially if you're an employee, you do want to follow the rules. But when, like Gabby was just saying, you know, she even put her art on pause for a while, so she went out and figured out what to do. It's about, you need to learn it's about learning how to break the rules, how to make your own rules, figure out what works and what doesn't. And if something doesn't work, well, maybe sometimes that can be frustrating. You know, that might happen where you try something, it doesn't work the way you thought it would, and you're out a few months at a time, maybe a few years at a time, you're out maybe a lot of money, you know, and that's not a fun feeling. But that happens, and that's one of the risks
you take.
It's good to know. It's one of the risks you take, stepping out on your own and breaking out to be an independent creative as opposed to just working a regular job. So it's one of the risks you take, but you learn from it. And then you readjust. You set some new rules. You're like, okay, well, this rule I made for myself didn't work, apparently. And you set some new rules. And you had the freedom to change and learn and grow.
And then when you do find what works for you, it feels as if you're walking on sunshine.
Yeah.
Rainbow, sunshine, unicorns, it just feels great. You know what I mean? And so I want to encourage you to take that risk. Grace and I want to encourage you to find what works for you. What works for me might not work for you, but I'm sure there's something out there that works for you. You just have to find it. And we're here to help give you tools and ideas to make that happen. So find your way, work not harder, but more effectively. And we want to see you grow. So that's the point of this.
Yeah.
Yeah.